So I think some of the people have gone out, but I'll start my workshop. Mr. Kesar asked me, I was a last minute replacement to somebody who dropped the merchandising workshop, so a little unprepared for it, but I wanted to do a small little exercise, get everybody thinking a little bit, and then probably get into some of the elements of merchandising that I wanted to talk about. So up until today, a lot of our focus has been on technology, and I've been working with technology with garment companies for the last about 18 years, and one of the things that I've realized is that technology is obviously as good as the people who are really using it. And the processes and the people need to be aligned with the technology. So Ram has talked about the technology, a lot more on the technology emphasis. I think it was a real eye-opener for me. The 3D, the designing was amazing. But I'll talk about something which we face on a daily basis as people who are in the garment trade. So I just want to, with a show of hands, I don't have a lot of people here, but how many people do merchandising on a regular basis? Just by a show of hands, can I? Okay, there are a few people, okay. So I'm going to lay down this one scenario, which I'm guessing people who've done merchandising are familiar with. So let me just lay down this scenario. Scenario one, you have an order for a garment for 10,000 pieces. Order date is 15th of July. You got the order on 15th. The original ex-factory date was 15th of December. So you had a 5-month lead time. The order quantity is 10,000, like I mentioned. You've gotten an extension. You requested an extension for 2 weeks. You got it. So now the delivery date becomes 30th of December, right? So I just want you to read this, but I'll read it along with you. You are sitting on 20th of November. The buyer had kept changing the pattern and took time to get approval. So Ram, coming back to you, the buyers keep changing. We all face it. Since buyer made the changes, merchandiser requested and got an approval for a 2-week extension. However, planning department knows that lines are now idle because we were planning on a certain date. The first 2 weeks we would have produced the garment are now idle as what was planned is now no more available, and after 2 weeks, all lines are busy. So meeting even the revised delivery date is not possible. So when merchandise has asked for a 2-week extension, but there are other orders which are also lined up around that time, now you have a problem. So what do you do? And I had requested for a flip chart where we would have had groups do it, but since I've lost most of the audience,
they're all coming in.
They're all going to come back. If I have the flip chart, I wanted your idea. So what do? Blaming others is not an option. And when you give your answers, please mention the following: your recommended course of action, what do you feel are the chances of success, and what are the cost implications of your recommendation. So I want you to take a look at this scenario, and anybody wants to hazard a guess. Put your merchandising hat on, and you want to give it a shot? Give some suggestions. The idea was to make it a workshop, so it probably needs to be more interactive. So anybody wants to think about it and give? For people who can read it, this is just I'm going to look at the scenario again. Does this sound familiar for anybody who's been in this business? Sounds familiar? Okay. What do you do in this scenario as a merchandiser? And for merchandisers who are in this trade, I know this is something which these are really stressful situations where you need to where you don't know what the factory is going to respond. The factory is saying there is no way we can do it, and like I said, blaming others is not an option on this particular when I request an answer for this. So what do you do? And when I get into this merchandising, and when I've worked with companies talking about merchandising, especially when I come from a technology background, so I end up putting in technology. Our company puts technology systems in, but invariably, when we get into merchandising, we start having problems where the merchandising and their processes are not aligned to be able to meaningfully get the benefit out of a technology solution. So I want to use this as an illustration to demonstrate something, and then go into my presentation about what I think are some of the things which we as merchandising, as people who are running merchandising departments, need to look at and think about on a regular basis. So first of all, any answers on this? No answers? No guesses?
Can you move something earlier?
Can we move something earlier? That's a good one, sir. We can move earlier. But right now, I'm just sitting today. I'm sitting on 20th November. I don't have any other styles because the rest of the styles are already planned somewhere else. If I move something else, until unless I have slack capacity or I was overbooked, I really can't move things around. Or I request some approvals to get preponed, but it's too short a notice. That's an option. Any other? Split delivery. That's a great suggestion. Yep. All right. I think the option which ends up, please.
Communicate with other factories of the buyer to maybe, for example, there are 5 or 6 factories which
To see if they can produce. Okay.
a pool of factories which are
If they have capacity available. Okay.
so that
Okay.
ultimately the buyer gets a distributor.
Okay. Any other? Put in extra hours, OT. That's the,
Yeah, why not fly the goods then?
yeah.
I mean, if you're going to incur the more cost,
Yep.
might as well go all the way.
Yeah. What? Approach the customer with and tell him, look, 2 weeks extension will not work. The buyer will say, you know, you requested 2 weeks. You should have asked me 6 weeks before. You should have asked 6 weeks, before. Why are you asking me now? I already planned the goods. Now you air it if you can't do it. I only made a change and you are entitled to 2 weeks extension when I make a change. Now,
Request for the other customer who's delivery on the same time. If
okay.
this time.
Okay, that's you try and you try and actually negotiate with other customers and see if they are more flexible in taking a different delivery. All right. Now let me go to these were all they're pretty hard. You don't have many choices at this stage. If you are in between a rock and a hard place, frankly, there is not a lot which you can. There are certain things you can do, but it's a lot more firefighting. And when I've worked with companies in India, mostly in India, I've realized there's a lot of firefighting mode that we are in. And it's not because we enjoy firefighting. I think we have a slightly different approach to how important planning is. So, given this scenario, and I know we can all relate this scenario, let me give. I'll give you another scenario, and it's very similar to this one, but there's a slight different twist to it. Same 15 July. Original X Factory 15 December, you've got 10,000 pieces. The merchandiser, you're sitting on 20th September, not on 20th November. Okay? The buyer has just sent you a mail to you that would like to make some changes to the style. This will slide your delivery date. You know the buyer, sorry, there's a typo, will give you a 2-week extension. The planning department is totally packed in December. Everything is planned, and if all styles are loaded as per plan, then deliveries will be met. You just heard that the buyer has requested changes and will give extensions. What do you do? Similar scenario, but you've got 2 months earlier warning that something else is going to be happening. Now anybody wants to give, what will be the answer? What should the answers be? Same answers? Yes, no? Cost implications? Anybody wants to give an answer? No answers?
2 weeks will not be sufficient.
Huh?
2 weeks will not be sufficient. We will need time as per our production plan.
We will need time as per production plan. Okay.
We will maintain the delivery time, but we request for a little price increase.
Okay. He is being over smart, but nobody's going to give up. We don't know. But yes, that's one option. Any other? Anything else? Right. It's very apparent that the moment you are doing this on 20th of September, the number of options open up considerably. Considerably. And therein lies the real challenge and real business of merchandising. It's not about giving answers to customers. It's about anticipating a problem. That's what a commercial, and merchandising is a commercial operation. It's not a design operation, it's a commercial operation. And a commercial operations job, the person's job is to anticipate a problem.
Will request buyer to reshuffle the delivery of the other style for the same customer. So our line plan will not affect.
Yeah, we could do that. And most importantly, you actually, before you commit to the buyer a 2-week extension, you will first check with your planner whether 2-week is possible. There are a lot more options, and like I said, when a decision has already happened, if you have a certain window, the smaller the window, the fewer the options you have. And as merchandisers, it's our primary duty, and as businessmen, as businesswomen, it's our primary duty to create options for ourselves. And you create options through anticipation of problems. And that's the mode I'm going to talk about today. What is a dynamic merchandising? Dynamic merchandising is not reacting to situations. It's about anticipating a situation. And I have noticed companies which have high PCD, which have high on-time PCDs. Everybody understand PCDs? What is PCDs? Planned cut date. We all know that. And I'm very scared to even ask how many of our factories actually know our on-time PCD number. Yeah, okay. PM Pro though, PM Pro is, they have an idea about their on-time PCDs. I tell, when I go to companies, I said, right from the person who's giving me water, right to the CEO, they should know what the on-time PCD is in the company. And it's an important, so the 2-3 key metrics of your companies need to be known, not just even by the sweeper, even to the guard, even to the merchandiser, to the production head, to the factory worker. Everybody should know and talk the same number. So for example, if on-time PCD is an important metric, everyone should know it. And that's what merchandising is all about. So I digressed a little bit on-time PCD and these things, but I wanted to illustrate a point that how many of us are actually trying to handle a problem which if 2 months ago would have been very much simple. It would have required a 30-second discussion and that problem would have been solved. Example, one of the things we all face is, and I'll go to the, I've got plenty of time, is you have lines which are empty, and you know one of the fabrics is going to come 3 days from now or 10 days from now, and your lines are going to be idle 3 days from now. If today I tell my fabric person that can you get the fabric 10 days now earlier, today I tell him, can you get it tomorrow? He will say, are you nuts? I can't do that. But if 2 months ago, I had anticipated that this gap would be there, that time if I told the fabric person, hey, you're going to fabric going to come in 60 days, can you do it in 50? He's like, sure. It requires, at that time, 60 minus 10 doesn't seem huge, but if today I sit and say, make 10 to 0, it's an impossible task. And if you really notice and when you're doing merchandising and running operations, you'll realize how often are you reacting to a situation versus anticipating a problem. So I wanted to emphasize this point, just the timing of looking at a problem has a huge implication into the cost and the number of options you have in trying to solve a problem. Okay? And lastly, the stress you encounter in solving a problem. The later you solve it, the more stressful it is. So I don't know, it's more of a management issue I'm talking about, but I think I wanted to relate this to this. So I will come into my presentation. Any questions so far? I would like it. I wanted it to be more interactive. I wanted a flip chart. I wanted to do certain things, put ideas, but unfortunately I can't. Yes, please.
See, the time taken in the entire delivery was 5 months, which makes 150 days.
Yes.
So I think in today's scenario, no buyers give you this much of time for a delivery.
Yeah, yeah.
Normally you work on a 90 to 100 day schedule.
तो आप उसको ना 2 महीने और कम कर लो.
Exactly. So what you said in the end, it can probably be started at the beginning of the order because 29 was the change expected.
Yeah.
So you still have 65 days in the delivery.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks extension, it makes around 3 months, which comes to 90 days.
Yeah.
So we are ahead of time. We can always do a backward planning, like as you said. You can always push your fabric. You can always push your frames and the pre-production approvals.
Right, and the point I was trying to illustrate was not the 150, 120 or 90 days. The point I was trying to illustrate is about anticipation. I think if we, from the day the order comes in, so I'll just talk about a few elements, and what I've seen is as some simple and effective tools and I would say guidelines I have found to be very useful when you are, doing merchandising in your organization. So first, and I will, before I ask, how often, so people here are merchandising, how often do they have a review meeting? PM Pro people, please don't talk, because I know I've been working with you people a little bit. So how often do you do a review cycle? Yes, please. Every week you do. So fantastic. The first step is to have a cycle. And I'll tell you the importance why a cycle is required. A cycle is required because the only time when you have an interaction with others, other departments should not be when something wrong has gone. So typically you will find गड़बड़ हो गया, बॉस अपने कमरे में बुलाता है कि क्या हो गया जी. So the moment, तो उसका एक रिजल्ट होता है कि फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल बॉस जब बुलाता है तो इंसान का मूड वैसे ही खराब हो जाता है, हार्ट रेट बढ़ जाता है. Okay, and you don't know what the hell the boss is going to now ask. You're not prepared, right? It's very important to reduce uncertainty to yourself, we all understand, and to others around you. So having a review cycle, and I think I'm talking about very, very basic management concepts, not talking rocket science, but having a review cycle is critical. Because when people should know, regardless, if let's say I fix Tuesday 9 a.m., I have to do a review. People are there 9 a.m., they are ready, they are mentally ready, they are prepared for it, they are ready for asking questions, ready for answering questions. You have a review cycle. Okay, first step I would talk about is putting together a review cycle. Second, and I've talked about remember which box you are in. I wanted to do a little box exercise, but I'll talk about there are 4 boxes in which you are working, and I'll give you a brief thing. Something which is critical and important, something which is critical but not important, something which is not critical and not important, and something which is critical and important. So there are 4 boxes, and I would have gotten into more details about this, but it's important that when you look at your own time, we need to understand how much of the time we are spending in terms of reacting to things, to situations, versus how much of time we are spending on planning. Things actually should happen as per what you envisaged things would be. But if you are never envisaging anything, all you're doing is floating around, you've got a TNA, you're just following it blindly. What you'll end up happening is you'll be like a little boat which is floating around in the ocean. Waves come, sweep you that side, waves come, sweep you that side, and you will always be fighting against the waves. But if you have a plan and you are always working towards a plan, it has a huge impact in terms of number of times you have to spend doing firefighting. And I talked about which box you are in. So think about how much time you are spending of your day in doing critical, important planning things. Okay? And I can talk a little bit more about it in a Q&A. Huh? Yeah.
Can you give an example of something which is critical but not important?
Critical but not in phone baja. Uthana padega. Unfortunately, the phone is ringing, but is it important? Probably not. It's a critical but not important. Critical means time critical. Okay? There's a complex task, there's simple tasks. I can get into a more management things, but it's important I do it. For example, I'll give you another one. I mean, there is, I need to send out, there is one garment which has to be shipped out. I have an e-commerce company, I ship out 500 garments. It's critical that it goes on a certain time, but it's a mechanical, simple task. So what invariably ends up happening is, and I can get into management techniques where we end up paying people to do 9 simple tasks, but 1 complex task. And because that complex task is very complex, the person is only spending 5% of his time doing complex and 95% time he's doing simple tasks, but we have to pay him at the complex level because of the complexity of the work. So I'll get into the more details about how to break down tasks, how to break down processes so that you de-skill them. Ram talked about de-skilling. I am a huge fan of de-skilling. I now realize why we thought I was stealing a presentation, because I was talking about these things, right? But de-skilling is one of the most important jobs of top management in any company. De-skilling, de-skilling, de-skilling. That is what management should all be working about. Okay. Next is learning from history. One of the things which I have noticed in our industry is वो कॉलर 10 साल पहले भी गलत बना था और आज भी वो गलत बना है. वो क्रेप आज गलत आ गई है, कल भी गलत. 5 साल पहले भी वही हम देख रहे थे. वो रबिंग, उसकी ड्राई रबिंग खराब थी. We're solving the same problems for decades. I remember I came to my father's factory. By the way, I'm part of the garment trade, so I also run a garment. Family runs a garment business. 20 years ago, when I used to come to my father's factory, I'd be looking at them, looking at कि label ना, wash care label ना, approval, उसका artwork में problem आया हुआ है. How many of you see this now also? And how many times do you solve the same problem again and again and again? Okay? So, learning from history, and you learn from history not just in terms of, so how many of us actually sit back on a weekly basis, and I was again talking about review cycle, and say, what were the learnings from the last week? Did we put it together? Fantastic, and it needs to be documented. It cannot be verbal alone. Verbal minutes have meaningless. That data is not being captured. Writing down learnings and then putting together a corrective action plan is part of ISO, a lot of these things, but I'm saying it is not just because a lot of our focus is on the production floor, usko improve karna hai, SAM value kam karo, 10 piece ban rahe hain, 11 banao, 11 nahi ban rahe hain, 12 banao. But what is, so if I want to ask you, what has been the productivity improvement of merchandisers in the last 20 years? Have we measured it? Have we measured how many styles a merchandiser used to do 20 years ago and how many styles a merchandiser used to do does now? Have we ever measured it? Have we learned? If we have not, if we didn't go up from 5 styles to 50 styles or 20 styles, I think we haven't done learnings. There is something really wrong. So when I say learning, I'm saying really learning. Learning means the learning should retain with the organization. And that's why, I'm a very big fan of technology, because in my previous, when I was talking in the previous session, I was saying the experience and the knowledge of the company should reside in the servers of a company. I'm a huge fan of that, because I don't want the experience to walk out of the door when the person leaves my company. I don't want the experience to call in sick at work. I don't want that experience to go somewhere else. Okay? So, learning from history, when I say learning from history, humans can learn, but is the organization learning from history? And you need to institutionalize learning in a company. Okay? Now, next, the safe space. Okay? I think I remember going to one merchandiser meeting. PM Pro people, you are not those ones. So anybody, by the way, I've been, with PM Pro, there's a certain relationship in terms of working with these guys. a great team. So I remember going to this merchandiser meeting that was about 3-4 years ago. And there was a merchandiser, there was a planning department, and there was a couple of other people. And the owner of the company was also sitting. And they were having a discussion. And I realized very quickly that the owner was more of a babysitter in that meeting than doing anything meaningful. So I asked the owner, I said, why don't you step out of the meeting? And let's see what happens after the meeting. And realized that very quickly the meeting deteriorated into a really, really nasty meeting. Because the organization was never trained. The merchandiser, the people were never trained to ask questions and to get accountability without making it difficult or making it so we can disagree, but we can't be disagreeable. Okay? So I think one of the great things about the American work culture, and work there a little bit, is that you can be 50 years old and I could be a 20-year-old person. I could be new in the company. If I tell you something, there's something to be given about irreverence. Irreverence is a very important quality and culture. And irreverence is something which we should nurture in our organization. So when I talk about safe space, people should have the ability to talk to each other, question each other without others feeling really threatened by it. And again, when I go back to the review cycle, I talk about how when you do the review, when you create the minutes of the review, it should reflect. It should not be when you sit, people discuss, and then when they come back after a week, nobody's documented it properly. Objectively, nobody's documented it. It's not in a system. Ideally, it should be in a software system where it can be mined and it can be kept for posterity, for learning, for analytics, for a lot of other things. It's very valuable information. But at the end of the day, people should look after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, look at the same thing and dispassionately say, this was what was discussed. We all agreed that this was what was discussed. And comes back to a single source of truth. I remember seeing this phrase today also in one of the presentations, right? Single source of truth. Easier said than done. It's very easy. It's easy to say a single source of truth, very difficult to implement on organizations. So when we're talking about merchandising and dynamic merchandising, do we have even a basic system where we have a single source of truth? Example. I'll give you an example of a scenario which will happen. The merchandiser says, मैंने तो file hand over कर दी. Production planning, the planner says, file मिली है, हाँ जी मिली है, लेकिन ना सर वो तो close out ही नहीं किया ना उन्होंने. They have not closed out 2 things. Person said, but I told you na, this was not relevant. So those 2 people, gentlemen, or I can give examples, are merrily going along. She thinks she has handed over the file. The planner guy says, I don't have a file or whatever. Who arbitrates between them? They are living in 2 realities. First step, we need to figure out, do we have a single source of truth in a company? And I'll tell you, there's a very simple way of doing it. If I had done this workshop properly, the first scenario, I would have only merchandisers try and figure out a solution, and all the planners give a solution, and the fabric people give us a different solution. And you'll realize very quickly, if they sit together, they would realize how different the realities are between the 2. You would be very, very surprised. Trust me on this. Do this exercise where you're doing a regular, and trust me, again, if you're not doing this regularly, and actual meeting. When I'm saying actual meeting, does not mean being nice to each other. Actual meeting means asking each other, holding each other accountable, and yet not being disagreeable. Okay? So you will realize what a single source of truth is. Single source of truth means everybody derives the truth from the same place. Very simple. So systems like what Ram is talking about today, I think there were other speakers today. They were all talking about essentially at the end of the day single source of truth, which is reliable. And as merchandisers, one of our important jobs is to make sure that we develop this single source of truth within our organization. All right? Lastly, there's one more. Document everything. I have talked about it a little bit earlier, but documenting everything is critical. And people think it is overhead. Actually, it is not. It will reduce a lot of your work if you've documented things. And documentation doesn't mean just typing letters or typing in long things. Documenting could just be a tick mark. And make it simple for people to document it. And a document is important if it is usable later on. So there's no point giving a long paragraph. Nobody reads paragraphs. I would just slot it into 2-3 action, non-action points. It has to be very action-oriented. So the document which you are generating needs to be an action-oriented document. It needs to be a forward-looking document. It cannot be a backward-looking document. It cannot be who did it wrong. Fabric time पे नहीं आया था इसलिए delay हो गया. That's not documentation. That doesn't help anybody to document it. Everybody understands the fabric, but are we capturing solutions to problems that we're doing? So the document has to be a forward-looking document. And I have realized our merchandising team people need to get trained into doing these things. They have not been simply trained. I tell a lot of people, we have these designers who have no commercial or no business background, who are running businesses. Not that there is anything wrong with it, but just they have not been exposed to this, which is one of the real problems. And Ram has talked about the symptom of the garment problem in India, and I'll tell you the disease. Disease is a strong word, but after looking at it for so many years, I've realized there are 2-3 things which how many of our companies have actually MBAs. Companies have MBAs where people come, or at least we have exposed our people to modern management practices. We have not. And today what I'm talking about, if I go to some, this is like ABC for management, but I have in most of the companies, especially the smaller ones, the SMEs, this whole concept of investing in management is missing, and exposing people to this kind of way of thought process. So documentation is a very important part. You go to any of the large companies, everything gets documented, and it saves you a lot of time. And I talked about this, and I'll end my presentation with this about anticipation. The money you make is proportional to your ability to anticipate things. And take it from me, that's how you make money. That's how Ram makes money. That's how Mr. Tony Uppal makes money. It's his ability or their ability to anticipate situations. So if Ram thinks that 3D is the way to go, he's anticipating. He's a crystal ball gazer. He's trying to figure out. He's telling what's happening. And that's how he's making money. And he makes more money because his ability is better. And we need to develop our ability to anticipate. So we have to get out from reaction mode to an anticipation mode. And it's a switch. I mean, you have to visualize what's going to happen. There's a tool, and I've forgotten the name of this wonderful management guru. It's a concept called a pre-mortem. Anybody's heard of it? Pre-mortem? Don't know? So I'll take 30 seconds to explain. Everybody knows what a post-mortem is, right? Post-mortem. Insan mar gaya. Person's died. You open up. The coroner looks up and says, why did he die? Oh, died because of heart attack or X, Y, Z, whatever could be the reason. Person's dead. Imagine, and this is a very powerful management tool actually. Imagine you're sitting today and you're doing this order. You're going to get this order. Let's give an example. You're going to make this 10,000 piece order. Imagine you're 3 months from now, the order is already delayed. And you are sitting in a room and the room decides why it got delayed. Because we are very good at figuring out what went wrong. We as human beings are very quick at figuring out what went wrong. So you're imagining you're sitting here on let's say 5th of September or 8th of September, and you're imagining this order which has just come now, it was supposed to be due on 20th of December, it's delayed, cancelled, 20% or whatever, 30% discount, and you're all sitting in a room and saying what went wrong. And then people give examples. ये हुआ था, fabric गलत हुआ, ये हुआ, and what it does is, it tells you what are your risk factors, and then you try to anticipate those risk factors. Very powerful tool. But you have to train. And what it does is, it incentivizes people to talk about some things going wrong. We don't like to be the bearer of bad news. Sir, वो चुप रहो ना, उसको क्या बताना, जब आ जाएगा डिस्काउंट तो ले लेंगे, फिर क्या कर सकते हैं, सर पे पड़ेगी. But people will be knowing कि हाँ पंगा होने वाला है. But who will bell the cat? Who will say that there's a problem which is going to come? And this is a very, very good tool to incentivize your team or incentivize your group or encouraging your group to actually look at the wrong things, and then you get your risk factors and then you anticipate problems. So I have felt this is a very powerful tool for developing your ability to anticipate problems, anticipate, not just problems, anticipate things. Okay? With that said, I'll stop my workshop. It was supposed to be interactive, but unfortunately, due to logistics issues, I didn't anticipate it.
We will continue. You're not going anywhere. I'm sure you guys have questions.
Yeah.
Anybody has questions?
Ram looks like plenty.
Huh? I have questions. As a matter of fact, the term merchandiser, I keep reminding people that I'm very old, 48 years in this business. And in America, merchandiser term is very different than what's been used in Asia. As a matter of fact, in the small businesses, the owners are the merchandisers, higher than designers. In a larger company, a merchandiser of a group, of a line, of a brand, of a label, who's much higher than. What is the exact definition of merchandiser? Who knows about merchandise being marketed, being sold, being manufactured, or whatever. But they're the market intelligence people. They know what will sell, what will not sell, and on and on and on. So they are in charge, whereas a very crude definition of merchandiser in Asia is expediter. And between expediter to the guy or girl who gets the total blame for everything that goes wrong, because they are the one who are communicating with the buyer, and then they communicate. So who are they? They're basically a go-between, but they're the most ill-informed. So a few things that you mentioned that I have, my management style is very different. They call me head coach. We're a group of about 300 people in 14 offices. We have no bosses. Nobody works for anybody. They all have prime responsibilities and full authority to do whatever is needed to be done. And I can guarantee you my 300 people will take any 700 people on from my competitor and outperform them because what they are able to do. They have mentors within the company. I have two grounds for dismissal. One, hello, the president of our company is here. May I ask you to define what are the two grounds for dismissal?
Do not say lying and do not repeat mistakes.
That's it. My father used to say lying is a sign of weakness. Only weak people lie. So I do not want to be surrounded by weak people. And they bring everybody down. So zero tolerance. You lie, you're out. There is no second chance. काम करते हैं वही गलती करते हैं.
Yeah.
I used to run management consulting company, and I used to have 3 pencils as examples. There are 3 kinds of people. Each pencil was different. One was sharpened from both sides. One was sharpened only on one side and had a razor on the other, and the other one had a razor on the other side, both sides, okay? So this is the people who don't do any work, but they take mistakes from everybody else. Everybody else is wrong, right? And those who never make mistakes and they work so hard because both sides are sharpened. And then there were normal people who work and they make mistakes and so on. Yes, I am not in the favor of having merchandising meetings. What happens in meetings? Most of us get into negative side. चलिए एक exercise करिएगा घर जाके कभी party में. Get together at a, I don't know, among friends, right? And go late, which of course everybody does come back. So, but make an excuse, make a story so bad, so painful that you are as though you just killed somebody or almost killed somebody, so that people can sympathize with you. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this what happened to you? But guess what the reaction will be? The moment you finish your story, the other one will start. Oh, that's nothing. Let me tell you what happened to me. And you just started the negative wave. The third person is going to outdo the first two. We are negative people. We're negative people. I run my company on a very different way. Let me ask you a question. Everybody can see this? Yeah? What color is that? Are you sure? No, it's white. Who said black? Who said black? Okay, you're fired. I'm the boss, remember? Okay, white, okay, right? Because I'm saying it's white. And you go away. And you go said, that idiot, that son of a bitch, that was black. But you know what? And I'm going, that idiot, that was white. Because that person can't see it. Because we're not seeing the same thing. You have your view, I have mine, but we haven't have our consent, our way of looking at things. This boss bullshit is so negative, so counterproductive, and who loses? The boss, because you're not empowered. I couldn't do it because none of my people, my associates could ever say that. You didn't have to ask anybody. You didn't rent a helicopter to go take it. Nobody said no. Go do it. Empower your people to make the decision. Or hire children. Nahi beta, naak saaf kar lo. What the hell? I have adults working with me. I gotta treat them like adults. So one major principle that every management should have is small little word called, what do you propose? We have a problem. What do you propose? You'll be surprised, pleasantly, how many quick answers will come in, how many productive solutions will come in by just asking the other person, what's wrong with it? That person knows inside out, that person is working so close with that. Just because I'm boss and I am going to give you the solution? No, I don't even know what the solution could be. What's wrong with that? How many people walk in? Sir, we have a problem. I remember I was 25 years old. Oh, that was a long time ago, by the way. Okay, so I had second engineering degree taken in Canada. I have 3 engineering degrees and an MBA, but I'm a much better tailor. I can make patterns, do grading, make markers, cut, sew, and make piecework great. So if you want to do your job, you got to understand how that job is done. Otherwise, don't even be responsible for that. So 25-year-old running a very large company, but I had no knowledge of their processes. They were making home furnishings, and there are 13 factories. They promoted me from industrial engineer to production manager. Everybody's walking into my office, light up the cigarette, take the coffee, Ram, we have a problem. And I'm going, oh my God. Okay, so I don't know what the solution is. I don't even know what their process is that they're asking me, right? Okay, so let me think about it, and let me think about it. And next thing you know is I'm working till midnight doing my work in the daytime. So I very quickly realized, okay, fine. You have a problem? I called everybody in my office, all the plant supervisors. I said, you have a problem, write it down. And write down 3 possible solutions and bring it to my office. First of all, half the visits were gone. Nobody wants to write things down. And when they brought it in, because they are the one who are so close to it, they just don't have the authority to act on it, because they were able to tell me what, and I had a little more common sense than they had it, or a little more authority than they had it, I authorized. When they are gone, I evaluated, was that a right decision? If not, I'll just run behind and change it. But the people were in and out, and I was going home by 6 o'clock. So time management is not very difficult, but just knowing by collaborative. One word was used quite a bit today, experience. I have a lot of experience. But my definition of experience is different. My definition of experience is learning what not to do. I still don't know what to do. I'm still learning on a daily basis. But when somebody says, don't do it, an older person, they're not saying don't do it at all. They're saying the way you're suggesting, don't do it that way. And I keep telling all the young people that, look, you can't live long enough to make all your mistakes yourself. So learn from somebody else's experience or mistakes. Second thing I want to share with you, whenever you're going to go out, whether you're meeting the customer or your boss or your supervisor, you have to learn to live with 3 Ps. Those who are taking notes. And these 3 Ps are preparation, presentation, and then persuasion. And believe it or not, they have to be in that order. A poor presentation is a very big symptom of a lack of preparation. And there is no persuasion. So, if you prepare, 2 things happen. A, you earn your brownies. B, you make a proper presentation. And C, the boss thinks or the customer thinks, this is the person I need to work with. So you don't even have to worry about the third thing, persuasion. The principles, the cubes that we live in, what do you propose? Preparation, praise. Nobody wants to be criticized. Just praise the other person. Oh, nice. Really? Wow. What are the... Oh, shit. No. The moment you go, oh, shit, that other person wants to just choke you. What's wrong in saying, oh, wow? हौसला अफजाई बोलते हैं उर्दू में. What's wrong with people? Do one thing. Smile when you're talking. Smile. That person can feel it. That person can see it. If you're talking on the phone, put a mirror in front of you. Make sure you're smiling when you're talking on the phone. If you're not smiling, that voice shows you're not really happy. And that's not fair. Any questions? I can go on, I mean, shit. 4 साल की बातें करनी है. चलिए मैं तो दोबारा rewind. Okay, I'm just kidding. I want to do an exercise with all of you. Are you willing to do it? Yeah, everybody is in for that? Can somebody come in here from this side and take a video of that? Okay, can you? Okay. So, I don't need, okay. Make some room, right? So that you have some room here. Yeah? Okay. Chali baith jaiye. No, I'm just kidding, okay. That was funny, right? Okay, the exercise is very simple, okay? I want you to follow my verbal instructions. Okay, everybody got it? Straighten your right arm. Make 90 degrees. Touch your shoulder. Straighten again. 90 degrees. Touch your shoulder. Touch your chin. 1, 2, 3. You were not following my verbal instructions. No, that's cheap. Please sit down. Employees are like children. Employees are like children. You can't tell a child something and do something else. Don't lie. Lying is very bad. And the phone rings. Oh, कहते कहते मैं घर में नहीं हूँ. What message are you giving? Culture starts from the top. So, as a leader of your group, you can't tell your people. You have to show them. You have to do it. If you don't expect that they're not listening to you because you yourself are not doing that. So if anything you're going to take out today is be an example. Be an example of how you want your people to be with you. At the end of the day, we are on the human relationships. A good team is a stronger one than a bad lot of people who don't know what's going on, organization. And second thing, every management consultant has been, I don't know, for years, and you must have heard, you must organize yourself. Have you heard that? Oh, make a to-do list. Oh, classify must-do list and shall-do list and can-do list out of those lists. How many have gone through this? Yeah? Okay, so the second thing I want you to take with you tonight is make a list of not to-do list. You, and implement that with your group. If you want to make a change, or you expect the management to make a change, or you expect your people to make a change, first you make a change in yourself. Look at what you're doing today. Can you do what you're doing today by not doing certain things and have the same results? Make that list. Just one item a day. But from now onwards, I'm not going to do it. Have every one of your team members. That's how you disrupt it. That's how you improve it. Because what I did yesterday was yesterday under the yesterday circumstances. Just because we've always done it like that. How many times do you hear that? We've always done it like that. That line goes away. I ask people, why are you doing this? And I have this big thing written up there. Don't say, I've always done it like that. पहले खड़ा कर देता हूँ मैं बोर्ड ऐसे ही सवाल पूछ के. Why? Because that's the first answer you get. But that was then, today is today. How do you bring that change? How do you disrupt the process? This is how you do it. By disrupting, by changing. Few companies in Sri Lanka. I do a lot of consulting. India में आते हैं तो बोलते हैं यार चला कर देना. Sri Lanka, I charge $10,000 a day. But I guarantee that if I don't save you $100,000 that day, don't pay me. So and I don't write reports. So there's 2, 3, 4 cameras going on at the same time when I'm talking because they need to transcribe and make it happen. I'm old, therefore I don't think I have enough time to go through the nonsense of writing reports and making implementation. I want to share my learnings as much as possible in a very short time. So when I'm talking to these people and I'm saying, do it this way, they don't question. if I'm in India, giving the same advice, छोड़ना यार. This is the thing. Free has no value. Unless they're paying, it has no value.
Right. I think, thanks, Ram, for the thing.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap up. I think we'll wrap up.
Yes.
We're over the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're done.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think.